The Chicago Digital Accessibility and Inclusive Design Meetup presents Focus Management with Dhiraj Indurthy.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Dhiraj Indurthy speaking. Today, I'll be talking about focus management. By focus, I mean how I'm a developer. Let's go with that first. I'm a developer. I'm a front-end developer. I've been developer for like over 6 years now, and have been accessibility developer slash consultant like for over 4 years now. I've worked with different companies, two of them being financial companies and one of them retail. They were all having accessibility in them, so I got to experience like different projects. That's what I'm going to say. And Focus management. Focus management is like managing focus, to be simple, but managing focus in a web page. All right, managing focus in a web page, so people are not confused. People are not lost when they are going to a new web page. Maybe the website you work on, you're familiar with, and you're like very comfortable going around. You know where everything is. But just imagine a person who just came and saw that, and especially a person who doesn't even know what's going on. Like, for example, language-wise, like foreigner who's a different language person looking at an English website that's in English, for example. Focus will help. It might not help 100%, but it will definitely help. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Some of the, this is a very huge topic, so I try to cover, since I've been developing accessibility for 4 years now, I've been working with different kinds of developers and designers. So I try to gather the most common and most commonly made mistakes, or most commonly the misunderstandings we had between each other, and like sometimes what you understand is what not they mean. So like just misunderstandings, to keep it simple. So these are the ones. Obviously the main thing, why do we need to do that? I'm going to cover that. And some of the developer perspective stuff are tab index. You might have known the HTML attribute tab index, and tab versus arrow keys. Like, why should we even care about using tab key and arrow key? These are the keyboard. Tab and arrow keys are on your keyboard. You can notice that if you see. And dynamic content. Dynamic content is like when some content shows up on a website as a result of an action. Like I said earlier, like why do we need to manage focus? It's just preserve meaning and operability when user navigates the web page. Like there are different kinds of apps. There's a single page application, and there is a application which just has multiple different pages and stuff. So we need to preserve the meaning. We just don't want people to get lost. Say, for example, a banking website. If a person is trying to compare credit cards or open a credit card account, they could get angry at one point and just leave, go to some other place where it's easier to look into different credit cards and get that credit card. So we want to make life easier to everybody. So and we want to preserve the meaning while we are doing that. So that's the main thing. How is it possible? Like getting into developer details at this point, how is that possible? How is managing focus possible? Is by pointing the location. Like, for example, when you go to a new page, how should I keep this? Like, say, for example, the user doesn't have a mouse, for example, is using only keyboard. The user is just using the keyboard. And when the user goes to a new page, the user wants to know, because if it's a mouse, you can just take your mouse and point it like it's like touchscreen, more or less. Whereas if it's only keyboard, you want to tell the user where the focus is. So the user knows which keys on the keyboard to use to get to the next place on that specific page. That's called pointing the location. By changing the appearance. Yes, you'll point to the location, that's fine. But how does user know it's actually located? The focus is located. Browser focus by default, for example, Firefox and even Chrome, they have a blue ring. Like, for example, if the focus is on a button, when you go to a new page, the button has a border of like blue color border. So you can change that. You by web styling, you can use web styling to change that and change the appearance of that place, so it's like obviously visible. Yes, if you spend 5 minutes and search in the page, you can find it. Yes, but how about finding it in the first 3 seconds? How does that sound? So that's the changing appearance point. Yeah, like key point, which group of users are we targeting? Keyboard only users or screen reader only users? Like keyboard only, like I said, people who cannot use a mouse or who don't want to use a mouse or who don't have a mouse, whatever. Or screen reader only users. Screen reader only users are mostly like people without sight, mostly, who can only hear, because screen reader is mostly for hearing, kind of. At least that's what I saw so far. I mean, not necessarily that, but screen reader only users. Those are our target users in here. Like coming to the tab index topic. Tab index is a attribute, HTML attribute, web development attribute. It like the direct, like the tab key on the keyboard. This tab index is directly controlled by that key, or vice versa. When I say you can dictate the tab order, but you can also avoid it. I mean to say that yes, you can. Like for example, you have a button and a input in a web page. You can actually have tab index 1, tab index 2, so that whenever you're pressing the tab key, the focus goes to different element on the page, and then like 1 and 2 in the same order. You can do that, but you should not do that. That's what I mean to say that. You can do that, but you should not do that. That's like a bad practice. Like if you are happening to do that, then that means like if you're trying to put like there's a element 1 and element 2, but you want to go for make the focus go to element 2 first, just why don't you just put this on the top? Simple. Proper structuring of the page. That's what I mean to say here. Never use web styling to position your elements. Same thing again, pretty much same thing. Web styling, like there are multiple like web styling as in CSS. If anybody's, most of you are familiar, I'm assuming. Web styling, like if you use CSS to position the elements, then like you use like whatever you see on the page is not what it actually is in the background. Like whatever you see on the page is not what actually coded there, because you use CSS. CSS is not HTML. HTML is the thing that controls the structure of the page. Like I said, developer language here. It's like structure of the web page is not same as structure in DOM. Like if you're familiar with DOM, that's like when you inspect in a browser, that's the structure you see in the back, the code. Like you can see, again, like let's take the same example here. You have a button. You have a right now you have a button on the top, input at the bottom, but you are using CSS styling to make the input go on the top, because in a form, like generally you put your name and hit submit, right? So, but that's not on the web page. That's not on the HTML. That's what not you coded. You coded in such a way that the button is on the top and the input is at the bottom, but you use CSS. I mean, like, why? Why do you want to do that? Why can't you just put the input on the top and button at the bottom? So, like, I'm trying to say that if you structure your web page properly, number one, you don't have to use styling to position the elements, specifically position. I'm not talking about border. I'm not talking about background. I'm saying position. Because, like, again, the whole point of focus management is to preserve meaning and make it easy for the user to operate it. So structure the page properly, so the work for you will be less and the work for a person who is actually using the website will be less. Feel free to use tab index 0. I know I said you should not use tab indexes, but sometimes you'll have situations where you'll have to use some HTML elements to be focusable. Not all HTML elements are focusable by default. Your browser focus does not work on all HTML elements. I'm saying this out of experience. So you can put tab index 0. Do not put 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, but just put tab index 0. That'll just get focus onto it. And the focus order on your web page still remains the same. The default focus order still remains the same. It won't get disturbed. If you put 1 or 2, then you'll have some extra work to do. Don't do that, please. That's it with that point. Next one, tab versus arrow keys. This is a very, again, this is a, sorry. This is a very huge topic as well. I'm going to just cover some of the, actually, one of the main thing I handle at present and as part of my project, tab versus arrow keys. This one specifically is to maintain meaningful sequence while the user is operating the web page. So you don't want to confuse the user. You want to say a user, a group of items in a web page, a some of the items in the web page are to be seen as a group than individual items. Like actually, let's go with the example here. Like we have 3 checkboxes. Like for example, while filling a form on a whatever website, they'll ask you multiple questions while filling a form. So whenever, like again, this one is specifically targeting users with screen readers. I know for when you look at it, it doesn't make too much difference, but just close your eyes and see what's going on with the screen reader. Like let's listen to the screen reader. It will just try to say you whenever you enter the widget 1, for example, it has 3 checkboxes which are interrelated to each other. So it'll just tell you that you'll provide appropriate ARIA tags to make much more meaning. But in this case, I'm just going to say it. So like you're trying to say the user that those 3 checkboxes in that little flowchart there, they belong to each other. So before you exit that widget, before you focus out of that widget, please look at all the three items in that widget. And actually, you'll also disable the tab key from there. You'll force them to use arrow key. That way, they will have to go through all 3 of them. And if you put a tab key, yes, they can choose to get out of it as well. If you get a tab key, it will not go to the second checkbox, but it'll go to the second widget completely. So they're going to skip the whole thing. So you're saying tab will get you out of it. Arrow keys will let you stay in it and look around to explore what other options are there in that specific area. Like I said, widgets versus items. Tab key functions only while moving from widgets, but arrow key functions while inside a widget. So like another best example is calendars, for example. If you want to navigate through different days in the calendar, you don't want to enable tab key. If you're programming a calendar widget, you have to use only arrow keys to go from different days in the month. Whereas if you hit a tab, it basically goes out of the calendar to the next available item in the form, say input, whatever it is. It'll just get out of that. I have an example. I'll show it at the end. Dynamic content to preserve the meaningful sequence. Again, let's consider a banking website here. It's basically notifying the user the reaction of their action. Basically, for example, say a user hit a button, then the most common example everywhere is a model pop-up, like a dialog box that shows up suddenly. Again, please close your eyes and put on a screen reader and see, will you know that a little dialog just popped up? No. If you're looking at it, yes, something popped up. But just close your eyes and try to find how do you know that a dialog popped up? This can be done by focus management. That's the dynamic content I'm referring here. Notify the user about the reaction that occurred as a result of their action. How do you notify them? By focusing the dynamic part. Like if it's a model like a dialog box, you'll make the focus go there using JavaScript, using CSS, whatever you want to do. Just make the focus go there, and the screen reader automatically picks it up. The screen reader will actually read it out. And keyboard navigation, because right now they click the button, and if the focus went there, the next time they click a tab key, for example, it will get out of there. They know that their focus is there right now. They need to focus at that part which just showed up. Dynamic content again. Users can see where the focus is now, and also the screen reader reads out the location of the user for those users who cannot see. Like I said, example of this situation are pop-up and modal dialog. I have a example for that as well. And there is one exception to this. It's sometimes you cannot make the focus go there, and we have appropriate ARIA tags for that. I don't want to talk much about it. I just want to mention the exception. I'll show you the examples right now. I see that. Okay, so thank you. This is the example for tab versus arrow key. So right now, I mean to say here that when I click this button, I'll see something. And if you see, my focus automatically went to the first item that showed up as a result of my action. And if I don't have screen reader open, but it's a screen reader will technically read out this whatever text is in there. Like right now, I'm using the down arrow key, and it's just, and I'm still using down arrow key and it's not going anywhere. And up arrow key, it's just staying the same. So this now, right now, if I hit a tab key, it goes to the next item. So like, I mean to say that when you're inside something, disable the tab keys. Use, like I said, I'm using a JavaScript to disable the tab keys and enable the arrow keys only when I'm in that little list. I'm also changing the appearance, if you noticed. Like I'm trying to make it too bright here, but yeah, I mean, you don't have to make it like so much of contrast between focused and non-focused items, but something much more different than a browser default. Like the browser default here is a blue ring. You can also see there, but this one is for that. And this is for the dynamic content. Like I said in the slides, like the example is this one. The moment I hit this button, the focus is going, in this case, if you see the blue ring on the heading, that's where my focus is going. What happens is the screen reader immediately reads out saying that, it reads out that it first says that name of the dialog, if you have any name for this dialog pop-up, and it'll also read out the heading immediately. So this is like I'm saying, I mean, I picked these examples because these were the more common examples which we had to redo and people were confused. You know, the simple ones are more confusing. So we had like multiple iterations. That's why I picked these examples. If anybody wants to know like anything about accessibility, like how to test it, how to actually write it, how to implement it, like literally like coding wise, feel free to contact me. And thank you very much.
Thanks to our speaker, Dhiraj Indurthy. Thanks to our venue sponsor, Nerdery. Visit them online at nerdery.com. Live captions provided by ACS, Alternative Communication Services. Visit them online at acscaptions.com. Live captions sponsored by McDonald's. We're loving it. This has been a production of the Chicago Digital Accessibility and Inclusive Design Meetup. Visit us online at meetup.com/A11YCHI. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/A11YCHI. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/A11YCHI. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/Chicago Digital Accessibility Inclusive Design. Copyright 2018, all rights reserved.